Call to order this regular meeting of the Page County School Board.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Ms. Gordon.
Yes.
Mr. Radcliffe. Mr. Bieber, absent.
Please pause for a moment of silence as we prepare for the meeting tonight. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Fox, do you have any agenda changes or additions?
No, not this evening.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Painter and a second by Dr. Painter to approve the agenda as presented.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yes.
Ms. Gordon.
Yes.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to certify personnel matters discussed in closed meeting, section 2.2-3711A1.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to certify personnel matters discussed in closed session.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yes.
Ms. Gordon.
Yes. We have no citizen comment. Can I have a motion to approve the May minutes that were posted on board docs?
Make a motion to approve the minutes from May 12th, May 17th, and May 26th.
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Painter and a second by Mr. Painter to approve the May meeting minutes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
Ms. Gordon.
Yes. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
A motion by Mrs. Sullivan Smoot and a second by Dr. Painter to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
Ms. Gordon.
Yes. Ms. Jeffries, Nutritional Services RFP, the response.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I am before you to discuss our fresh produce RFP responses. We did have over 200 views of the RFP on EVA, which is the Virginia procurement site. We received 2 responses. You can see the entirety of both of those responses in the table provided. And based off of this, I would like to recommend that all of the above items be awarded. Additionally, I am hoping that you would allow me to re-release the RFP for items that are not awarded at the point in which you approve these recommendations, hopefully. And I will come back at the next meeting to get that approval.
So which one are we not?
No, none of
No.
them.
No,
It's just
right.
Okay.
the ones she didn't get anything for.
I got it.
So there were additional produce items that I requested that I received no
I'm sure.
responses
Okay.
for.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Then I think you're up again with another response.
Correct. Thank you. I am here today with the responses for our invitation for bid for our mainline foods, including bread and milk, paper goods, apologize for the mistake there, and cleaning items. We did have over 580 views of this particular item on EVA. We received 3 responses, all of which are found in the table, and I will be recommending that we award the lots with the stars, and they are the vendor with the lowest price.
Anybody have any questions?
No questions.
Thank you. Dr. Fox, student discipline and safety update.
Yes.
So good evening, Board. This evening, what we wanted to do was just start to provide you some information related to our work this summer with student discipline and school safety. So we want to start this evening with a feedback survey that was given to our staff in May. And we had 260 staff members who responded. So that's a really great response rate for us, actually, especially at that time of year. May is really busy for them. Of those, 66% were teachers from all grade levels. 13% were under the other category, and you can see all of those different positions listed there. Instructional assistants were 12%, and then operations staff. So that was some of your bus drivers, some of your food service workers in our cafeterias, and some of our custodians. From that, we just thought it might be interesting for you to see one of the demographic questions we did ask was how many years have they been in education, and the majority were 1 to 5 years. So some of our younger teachers in terms of years of experience, not necessarily in age. But just giving you an idea there of the different age or teaching experience bands. Some of the feedback, this is just sort of some of the general trends of the survey data. I think it has a mind of its own this evening. But some of the needs that came from that are things that we are already working on, and we were, I think, aware of some of these things just in conversations over the course of the year. But we definitely need to clearly identify and communicate our student discipline procedures and expectations for staff, students, and parents. We need some consistency across discipline practices and with some of the consequences. And that's from school to school and within school as well, from administrator to administrator and from teacher to teacher. We need more communication between staff and school-based and central office-based administrators. Teachers want to hear more from administrators, and administrators want to hear more from us. So we'll improve that communication. Staff definitely feel like they need more support from parents to help with some of these disciplinary issues. Of the teachers were given, or staff were given, a list of a variety of different offenses and asked what are the most prevalent or most serious in your school. Attendance, cell phone usage, disrespect, profanity, and vape usage came up with the highest percentages there. So we're taking a look. We have some subcommittees that we'll tell you about later. They're looking at some of those things specifically. And then we definitely need some additional professional development. I think there's a clear need for us to do a better job of explaining to teachers why certain discipline consequences are the way they are. Some of them are based on state code or state mandates, and we can't change them. We can't amend them. Others, we have some discretion. So we're going to take a look at that. We're also revamping some of our classroom management processes and procedures for teachers, and going to talk about those things with staff. So before we move on, that's the survey. It's just a very cursory look at that information for you. Our administrators are digging in deeper to that information and have reports that link back to just their staff who responded from their school. So any questions about the feedback survey? With respect to student discipline, we are in the process of revising our student handbook and our code of conduct. And what we're essentially doing is taking those two things and making them one document. If you guys recall, we have a parent notification handbook that was pages and pages of information, and then it had a plethora of forms for parents to sign. That's now melded together with our code of conduct. So it'll be one document, and we are looking to move all of those forms that need to be signed into PowerSchool, so that'll all be handled electronically for parents. So one, it's going to make it easier for them to access the information. Two, it'll make it much easier for our staff to be able to collate and make sure we know who has signed what. And if a media release, we can easily pull a report to see who has a media release one. The revisions that are taking place are also reflecting any changes to policy or state code. We do that every year anyway. So we'll make sure that that's happening. It's definitely being revamped to make it more user-friendly, whether that user is a student, a parent, a teacher, or an administrator. We've made some adjustments to some of the charts and the systems of consequences in the back that I think will make everybody a little happier with the document. What we will do is bring that to you for a draft review at our first meeting in July. We'll have more in-depth discussion about it at your board retreat on the 26th. And then we'll ask for you to approve it at the July 28th meeting, so it's ready for the start of school. So any questions about the handbook and code of conduct.
So I've asked the question, I think before, but I think it's important to have a flow chart
Yeah.
of where the process is for each student, so every parent knows what's going on and what those next steps are
Yeah.
for discipline.
Yeah, so let me talk about our meetings, because that's where
Sorry.
those are, no, you're fine. That's where those are being developed. So part of all of this, in order to have those conversations, to be able to make these revisions and talk about the data from the survey, we're meeting every Tuesday with school-based administrators and central office staff. And so they are reviewing the handbook and the code of conduct, looking at the changes that Ms. Owens has made, providing feedback on that. We got feedback from them earlier this year, so all of that's been incorporated into the new draft. Again, they're looking at that student discipline feedback, the results from that survey. And then they're looking at what's called SBAR. So SBAR, you've probably heard that term before. That's the Student Behavior and Administrative Response Collection. That's the state piece of all of this that we have to follow. So for instance, fighting, you have to have a certain level of a response to a fight. You have to potentially notify law enforcement for some of the offenses. So they're reviewing those SBAR notifications, and we're looking to see how we adjust our levels. So you have SBAR requirements, and then within those, you have level 1, which is a certain type of consequence, like it might be a warning or a conversation with a parent. Level 2 might be in-school suspension. Level 3 might be out-of-school suspension, and level 4 might be expulsion or a hearing in front of the superintendent. So they're looking at those levels, and we're doing a little bit of rebalancing where we can. Certain things have to have certain levels of consequences, but we're doing a little bit of rebalancing and doing some consistency with those. They're discussing consistent disciplinary practices and expectations for students. So for example, if a student comes to school under the influence of alcohol, what is our minimum response to that offense? And that offense will be handled that way at all of our schools. Again, maybe a little bit different for K to 5. We hope we never have a K to 5 kid who shows up under the influence. But your 6 to 12, it might be that there's 3 or 4 days of in-school or out-of-school suspension or alternative placement for. We're going to nail down some of those so that there's no question. If it happens, this is the consequence. So then within that group, we're working in subcommittees, and this is where some of those flow charts are being developed. So they're looking at things like the attendance practices, classroom management, dress code, cell phone usage. All of this is going to be umbrellaed under the Virginia tiered systems of support. So you have tiers of behavior management and you have tiers of instructional management. So all of this eventually will come under a nice umbrella that we'll share with you. They're talking about school safety, the required safety drills and all those different practice things that we have to do, and then how we communicate all of this information out to parents, students, and teachers. And then they're developing those different management flow charts. They'll have different audiences. There's one, the primary one that we've developed right now is for teachers. And we'll vet that with, we're going to bring our teacher advisory council back in July, and they're going to take a look at that and give us some feedback on that. And then we'll have a similar one for students and one for parents. So those are in process. By the board retreat, we'll have those those flow charts for you guys to look at. So in terms of that process happening every Tuesday, in July, we're going to get some additional feedback from some of our stakeholders. So as I just mentioned, our teacher advisory council's they've agreed to come back in the summer. So I want to thank them for being willing. All of them have, if they're available and in town, they said, we'll come in the summer and do whatever you need. So I'm really grateful for that. We're going to be meeting on July 13th. And we're going to walk them through some of these changes to the handbook, let them look at it and give us feedback. They'll look at these flow charts and say, do they make sense from a teacher lens? We are going to deploy a survey or a feedback opportunity for parents in July to give us feedback on student discipline and school safety, and that'll be in the form of an electronic survey. And then we'll be sharing information with you guys at the meetings. In August, we're going to do discipline updates with our teachers and staff during those pre-service weeks prior to the start of school. Principals and teachers are going to be reviewing those expectations with students, and then we'll be also communicating that information to parents. I believe, yeah, so that's just a quick update in terms of how we're managing the updates for student discipline. Any questions there about that? Okay. So the last part of this update is on school safety, because that's been a hot topic as it should be. And I'm actually going to ask Dr. Johnson, are you okay to do the next two slides for us and just talking about that information?
Sure. So we've been very active this summer looking at our school safety and response plan. And it's bulleted out here that the plan, every year, it's a fluid process. During the school year, students and staff fill out state anonymous surveys, and those get submitted to the state. It talks about, from a student perspective, do you feel safe at school? Are you bullied? It sort of measures the temperature of the building in a safety point of view. Staff do the same. At the end of the school year, principals fill out a school safety audit. We've just finished that. That also goes straight from the principal, desk of the principal up to the state. And I just got the green light today that all schools have submitted that. And so now this summer, Mr. Bell and I will compile all of the information we have, the information we got from the students, from the staff, from the principal updates, and we'll combine that with what are we doing in preparation for safety response. So the other day, for instance, we met with most of the law enforcement leadership from the county, the sheriff, chief of police is for most of the towns, deputy that oversees all the school resource officers. And so we're beginning to, kind of point ourselves towards a focus, which is obviously the safety of our people, our staff and our students in the building. So from here, we create a safety plan. Historically, that was a pretty thick binder, about a 6-inch binder that you accumulated every document known to mankind. It looks good, we would sign off on it, but I'm not sure how practical it would have been. In today's day and age, with Google and live documents, we're in the process of switching that over so that all of our documents are fluid, they're live. For instance, if Luray Elementary sends me their safety plan with who's responsible for what in event of an emergency, I now have that as a live link. So, for instance, if the principal changes it tomorrow, Monday morning, the link would be live. The changes would be active instead of a binder that maybe we didn't realize somebody had switched the duty. So that's going to be helpful. It will allow us to retrieve the information more quickly. And we're going to put that in the hands of our law enforcement and our SROs as well, so that they'll have access to the most updated information. I mentioned the summer meetings. From the meeting the other day, I've reached out now to 3 members of law enforcement that are going to assist us on July 13th. 2 of them are going to do a building audit walkthrough with myself and our principals. And we'll just pick a building and we're going to do internal and external walkthroughs looking for things that are safety concerns. And I'll give you an example. Is there shrubbery that's gotten to a height that somebody could hide behind it? Is there something in place that needs to go outside? Do we have doors that are at the point where they can just be popped open because of the age of them, even if they're locked? So we're going to take the principals through that with expert law enforcement guidance, and then the principals are going to go back and do the same exercise at each of their own buildings. The drills then is the second phase to that. We've asked another member of law enforcement to come back. I'm going to be meeting with principals weekly through the rest of the summer. And so middle of July, we're going to be working on how do we respond to things such as active shooter. I was trained a few months ago in what's called ALICE, which is a cutting edge active shooter response technique. But for instance, you look at the data and says, should our students be moved to the corner of a room? That's what we've taught for years and years and years. Today's data would actually say perhaps not, because they look at the shootings that have happened currently and they look at the fatality rates, and we have data that says, no, maybe there's a better way to handle that. Maybe there's a different way for the teacher to move students around during a lockdown. So these are the sorts of drills and things we're going to be studying with principals. The goal would be then for the principals to take it back to staff in August and staff to take it to students, so that when we do our drills throughout the school year, students know what the expectation is and what the response needs to be. So we're moving in a really good position or direction with that. And as I said, in the weekly meetings there. Digital mapping project, the department, DCJS, has provided a grant opportunity, $3,500 per school, to switch our floor maps of our buildings to what's called CRG high-resolution maps. And what these are, they'll come in and they'll map out our buildings. They'll take drone imagery from the external as well. These things are absolutely incredible. At the end of the day, we would have a digital map of our buildings by floor. They would color code hallways. They would show where the AEDs are located on a hallway. They would show where gas cutoffs are, where ceiling entryways into the buildings are. These were originated by the military. They're graphed out. So you've got like alphabet along the top and numbers down the side. And so if law enforcement said there's somebody in Luray Middle School, they could say quadrant H3. Boom, you put your finger on the map, they know exactly where they are. They will be loaded onto law enforcement screens in their vehicles. They'll be loaded into the 911 system. So if somebody calls 911 from a school, not only would they be able to pinpoint where the activity is because of the graphing map, they'd also be able to pinpoint where the caller is. So these things are powerful. And as I said, DCJS is providing the grant money. We've applied. I submitted that a couple of days ago. As soon as we get word that we get it, and I don't have any reason to believe we wouldn't, then the company will come in. We've already got the quote, and we'll begin to initiate the next phase, which will be to create these maps. It's very exciting. And then August 6th, Mr. Bell and Mr. Williams have been working for quite a long time on a major active shooter role-playing drill. Going to be held at Luray High School. All first responders. Mr. Bell, I believe even perhaps helicopters might be involved in that. Possibly, right? There's going to be actors that are going to play out a crisis in our building. And it's for law enforcement to really go from beginning to end, all the way through back to the emergency room. From a school perspective, though, we're excited. What we intend to do is, because we've got such good cameras in the buildings, we're going to have the principals here, and we're going to have the school cameras up, and we'll be able to follow the event, hall to hall as it unfolds, and we'll be able to critique exactly what's gone on. We'll be able to see Mrs. Clark and Mrs. Meadows in action, what they're experiencing as school leadership. So when we saw this opportunity, it's great for law enforcement and first responders. It's great for the Luray admin that are going to be in the middle of it, but we wanted to know how can the rest of our staff benefit from it. And I think that's probably the best way we'll be able to do that. So that's happening on August 6th. So we've got a lot going on in safety and preparation this summer.
So additionally, we also wanted to just let you know about a meeting that we had this week with, it's been mentioned a couple of times, with our law enforcement partners and Ms. Moeller from the county administrator from her office. So we have made the formal request to the Board of Supervisors and to our local law enforcement partners for 2 additional school resource officers for this coming school year. And so in order to do that, though, we have to have all these people at the table to have this conversation, because law enforcement has to be able to staff that position, and the Board of Supervisors has to help us fund those positions, because right now they aren't built into anybody's budget. So we're having initial conversations about how we make that happen. So we just want to say thank you to all of those folks who are around the table. Chief Cook, Officer Roy, Chief Dean and Captain Cubbage, Sheriff Cubbage, Captain Owens, Sergeant Cavanis, Inspector Farrow, Miss Moeller, Miss Gordon, and then we had staff from the central office there.
No one from Shenandoah was there?
I don't think he could be here. He was communicating, he was aware of it, and he talked with Sheriff Cubbage earlier that day.
Okay.
So they're involved. In terms of the conversations, again, we've made the formal request, and that was heard on Tuesday at this meeting. And it's also been shared in a previous email with the Board of Supervisors about the request. 2 additional school resource officers. One would be placed at Shenandoah, who currently does not have one. The other one would be placed at Luray Elementary, because they currently share the Luray Middle School SRO. So we would essentially have one at each of those locations. So in order to do that, though, it takes quite a little bit. So funding, obviously, because those would be new positions potentially added to either the town's budget or the sheriff's office budget. We are looking at grant resources. There are some SRO grants out there. The recent state budget that was passed did increase the money allotted to that grant process, so we're looking into that. It could require some local funding from the Board of Supervisors and or from the counties, or the towns rather. And then if we get any additional funds from the state for school safety, right now, we're not sure. We believe all of that money has, instead of being funneled to schools, has been funneled into the SRO grant process. So we'll confirm, we're waiting on final confirmation for that, but we believe that that's the case with the state money. In terms of staff, sheriff's offices and police departments are experiencing the same thing we're experiencing right now in terms of it's really hard to find people to fill positions. So they're actively seeking and looking for people to come in and serve as police officers. So we would, one is to get the positions funded. The second challenge then is going to be to fill those positions. So new staff would have to attend potentially the police academy if they're not already a trained officer. And then there is additional training that an SRO is required to take to be certified to do that. And so I think what's important from that meeting was we're very grateful that everybody came to the table. So there's still some work to do, but I think there's a commitment on everybody's part so that we get school resources officers at every school. It's just a matter of how and when we make that happen. So we're going to keep pressing. We're going to come back to the table in a couple of weeks to revisit that conversation once we have a little bit more information about the grant process. In terms of ongoing school safety conversations that are happening not only with that group, but our internal groups, we're looking at the school safety needs, both interior and exterior. We're talking about training of staff, students, and parents. That came up a number of times in our meeting with the law enforcement about how do we train our secretaries? What do we have them do? How do we train our teachers? What do we train our students to do? And what do we train our parents to do? If there is an emergency, what's their role in terms of coming to a facility and supporting us as we manage an incident? We are looking also at camera access and remote availability. The police officers and sheriff's deputies would like access points to that. We have some already, but we're looking to expand the remote availability of our camera systems. We're revisiting all of our evacuation sites if we have the unfortunate incident at a school and we need to remove them, whether it's a shooting incident or, the fire at Luray that happened a couple months ago. We may have had to evacuate to another site. Where do we go? Dr. Johnson's talked with you about our crisis management procedures and needs there. The sheriff's office and the town police have also asked us to take a look at our parent drop-off and pickup procedures to see what we can do there. So we'll bring them back in, we'll get with schools, and we'll revisit those procedures before school starts. And then looking at all of those safety drills that many of those we're required to do. I know parents often have questions about why we do so many of those drills, but we're actually required and mandated to do those drills each year. So in terms of next steps for you all and for our public, we're going to continue these school safety and school discipline conversations. They're happening weekly. We're, again, going to be doing those exterior and interior walkthroughs of each building to access needs. Like now we know we have some doors that are going to need some attention to make sure that they shut properly and can be opened quickly and easily. We're revisiting that SRO funding and staffing needs in a couple of weeks once we have some more information. We're going to deploy that parent survey on student discipline and school safety in July. We'll give you additional updates at the school board retreat. We're looking at professional development for staff in August. And then we haven't determined a date for this, but we would like to hold a town hall or a World Cafe style information session for parents. And a World Cafe is just a little bit different, sort of the feel of a town hall where people can come and have the ability to ask questions. But in a World Cafe, it's more of a structured where there's tables set out with specific topics and a staff member is there to give a very short presentation, and then it allows parents to ask questions. So we're looking at doing something like that to help inform parents and allow them to have an opportunity to ask questions or get feedback. So once we have a date established for that, we'll share that information out. But we just wanted to give you all an update tonight on what's happening because there's a lot going on with discipline and school safety. So any questions?
So what has the school safety audits look like till now?
No, they do them every year. They're required by the state, so the principals do them at the conclusion, end of May, early June.
No, I'm not talking about that survey that they make you do. I'm talking like,
The outcomes of them?
no, is there like somebody that goes into the school and watches the procedures or goes and checks random doors and custodial closets, like a safe schools audit?
Not really. I don't think so unless we choose to do that or principals choose to do that.
I think some principals do it.
Yeah, and it's been, over the years, Mr. Thompson was very much on top of that for many years, and Mr. Harris, it shifted positions over the years. And I know when Mr. Moran was here, principals were given a scheduled, drill sheet and look fors and making sure he was able to look and see who was doing what when. So I would say it's been done, but we just want to heighten it.
Yeah, we had a surprise visits. You didn't know they were coming. That way you weren't just putting on a show or wearing your name tags that day. But what you talked about with doing the little walkthrough things, I Googled it because I'm like, I know there is one. There's a school safety inspection
I have that.
checklist
We have that.
that we had to do it as a required part of our audit because they would do their surprise visit and they'd give you 2 weeks and say, we're coming back. We want to see your
How you change.
evidence, and it'd be your discipline. It'd be,
What I'm hoping, 'cause we have that as well, but I'm hoping,
because this is required by the state too, if they ask to
right,
see it.
right, that's all part of the safety plan that has to be documented and signed off on. But I'm hoping that the law enforcement folks that work here, they're so in the middle of it, and
Yeah.
I say, somebody like myself is leading it, but I'm a trained educator.
Yeah, the
So-
fire marshal was part of
Yeah, I'm
ours.
really looking forward to having those folks walk with our principals to maybe
Mm-hmm.
even see if there were things that are not on that they would say, you need to be aware of this. So-
Yeah, it would be things that you're like, what? Like a closet of custodial stuff that they had the magnet in, but because it's poison, or
Flammable could be used.
they'd notice something on your pickup or drop off that wasn't safe or something. So,
I think the key of accessibility with the buildings as well, how that works. Police, sheriff's department.
You're talking
Is there
about
a master key that,
We had that conversation, so every principal has a master key to their building, central office have grand masters. I have a key that'll fit pretty much all the buildings. What we need are Knox boxes on the outside, but not just, law enforcement pointed out to us that having one at the front door is great. But if the problem is at the back door, it's in the wrong place, so you need them in multiple spots. And then they went so far to say, you really need more than one. It's great, I get there first, I use the key, now it's gone.
so we did a security grant yet this year that we could put something like that on it?
Yeah, that definitely, that grant will come out in July. School
Yeah, I saw it
equipment.
on a soups memo
Yeah.
thing.
So that could easily be something that we put on there, because there will be some expense to that. They're not cheap, and then getting the master keys cut is not
Yeah.
cheap either. That is an expensive endeavor, but that stuff we definitely, or through the school construction money, because there are caveats in there where you can use it for school safety as well.
especially with schools that are close together as well, like Page Middle and Page High, does each officer have a key to the other school?
Yeah.
That's, I know I've talked to some folks, I think that was maybe a potential gap, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was just wonderful to have them at the table. They had some really, really great suggestions. They're willing to give us whatever support that we need, whether it's doing the walkthroughs, and just taking a look at our crisis management plans with us, and, not just for active shooters, but for everything, tornado drills and bus evacuations or bus accidents, things like that. So we're just grateful for that.
I hated off-site
partnership.
evacuation.
Any other questions?
Thanks for the update, that's great.
Thank you.
No, and I want Paul and his team to know they are doing a lot of work. We're grateful
Yeah, I
for
don't
that
miss
work.
that part.
And our principals, I think we're putting a lot on them this summer because they're meeting for multiple things. We're not, school safety and discipline is one piece of their work that we haven't even touched on all the instructional things, and just the special ed needs and all of that. So our principals and assistant principals are doing a great job.
Yeah, but it's something you have to keep up with, and you're part about talking about making sure everybody knows what the role is. It's great to have it on a piece of paper, but they're like, I'm supposed to stop traffic, and they don't know, and yeah, it is. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Fox. You're up again with the superintendent's update.
Yeah, sorry. I'll pay for your counseling because you have to listen to me so much tonight. So I wanted to give you an update tonight, and we're going to focus on the chronic absenteeism indicator. I wanted to give you an update on that came through. So this is just a very quick nuts and bolts. We're going to go into school accreditation much more in July, but this is just a refresher because it's been a while since we've all actually talked about instruction. But there, if you recall the school quality reports, there are 9 quality indicators in there. Not all schools have all 9 because some of them are only for your high schools. But it's where we look at our achievement data for English, math, and science. You look at English gaps in math and science, and that's in your subgroup. So you might look at your students with disabilities or your economically disadvantaged students. And then student engagement is measured by chronic absenteeism. That's at all schools. And then at your high schools, your graduation rates, your dropout rate, and your college and career ready and civic readiness index. So those are the 9 areas that lead to us being accredited or not. And so in each of those areas, you have a performance level. So for achievement in English, we're either at a level 1, which is the best. That means you met the benchmarks, you're meeting the standard, you're at or above it. Level 2, you're near or improving. And then level 3 is you're below standard. And the way those reports come out, they're all color coded, so it makes it very easy to see where you are. And then from there, for each of those 9 or 6 areas, you get an accreditation rating for your school and your division. So you're either accredited, which means everything's great. You're accredited with conditions. It means there might be 1 or 2 areas that you need to focus on, or your accreditation is denied. And if you guys recall, the last 2 years, that's been waived because of COVID. So this year, it hasn't been waived coming up, so we will get accreditation status updates. It usually comes in mid to late August. It depends on, we haven't been given an update as to when to expect it, but prior to COVID, it came in mid-August for the most part. And the hardest part for everybody to remember is that our accreditation status for this school year is based on last year's data. So you'll see the data will say 20, 21, 22, but it's 22, 23 accreditation. So just a reminder about that. One piece of that is this chronic absenteeism indicator, and it's considered a measure of student engagement, whether you're engaged with school or not. And under normal circumstances, school divisions have control of the programs and the practices and procedures that we put into place to engage students in school. But because of COVID, all of that was disrupted. And so we are grateful that the Board of Education has recognized that there were some challenges this past year with that. Just the number of kids in and out with quarantine, the number of times that kids could be on remote, some could, some couldn't. Just very, very distinct challenges for our teachers this year with attendance. So what they've done is in April, they voted to have a special provision. If you could go to the next slide for me, whoever's controlling it. Thank you. Related to that chronic use indicator for this coming school year. So what they've decided to do is that they are removing that indicator as a piece of your accreditation for this coming school year. They're still going to measure it. We'll still get the values for it, but it won't count towards our accreditation this school year. And they were clear to say that it's only for this school year that they put this provision in place. So we wanted you guys to be aware of that. We're still going to get the data. We'll share it with you. We'll look at some comparables to 2018-19, which would have been the last time that we had data to actually look at. So we'll bring that data to you when we do bring our accreditation information, but just know it'll be there, but it's not counting towards accreditation this year. And then just so that you have a sense of kind of where we are with our daily, average daily attendance rates, this is where we're sitting this year, if we could, there we go. And I'm going to use the term, this is very preliminary, this is just pulled literally raw data from Power School in terms of our daily rates. The state's going to calculate things a little bit differently. You actually get a single-digit score for your chronic absenteeism thing, and you want to be under 10% there. So we're looking pretty good. I mean, these rates are not bad in terms of the attendance. Definitely, we've got some growth. And we need parents to be partners in that with us. So we will have some additional attention put on attendance. That's actually part of our school discipline and code of conduct. So we'll be talking more about attendance as we go on. So any questions about that update with the chronic absenteeism indicator?
Just one thing that kind of brought an idea. On the first page where it was showing, talk about going on to college and workforce and all that. Do the high schools do a report at the end of the year on their senior class on how many went to a 4-year, 2-year community. Can we get a copy of that? I'd
Well,
be interested to see.
Yeah, we can provide that for you at the board retreat.
Whatever, yeah. It just gives you an idea of where everybody's headed. And, so, yeah.
Yeah, because we also include in that, I believe it has like how many students got an advanced diploma, standard diploma, things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And then just to keep cycling back to this, so we keep you informed on where we are with the summer learning. Right now, Stanley is in the midst of their program. They've got 27 students participating. Shenandoah's program is going to run July 11th through the 21st. Currently, they have 16. They're still reaching out. They're getting a lot of no's, but they're still pushing and trying to get more students to participate. Luray Elementary and Springfield are going to run their programs towards the end of July. This would be sort of the second. They did one in early June. This will be the second one. Right now, they've got 43 and 22 students invited, and they're working on getting those commitments from those students. And right now, our middle and high school programs are proceeding as we've discussed in previous meetings. So I just didn't repeat all of that information for you. So. And then I did want to just share this with you guys. Our arts and culture camp ended last week, and they did a presentation of what they called the Granny Awards, and it was really, really cute. I have to say it was really enjoyable. A couple of us went, and it was just a really nice way to end a week and to see what these kids did in 7 days, because essentially they did this in 7 and performed it on the 8th day. So we just want to thank the staff for a job well done. That particular camp was coordinated by Emily DeMond, and then the teachers were Bobby Comer, Jenny Miller, Catherine Bailey, John Dunn, and Tammy Dean. Our assistants were Lainey Brown, Brittany Young. Our nurse was Karen Stoneberger. And we also want to make sure we include our transportation, our PCPS, and our food service. I need to add food service to there, I apologize. But all of them made this happen, and it was, I have to say, it was really, really cute.
There's some real talent there
Yes.
also, and that really stood out. So that was great.
And I
Great
think
job.
what made it so unique too is, and you can see in that picture, there were little ones and there were big ones. There were boys and there were girls.
Yeah.
It was a wide variety, and they were happy. You could see they were really enjoying themselves. Some of the other kids who maybe didn't want to participate on stage helped with the decorations, and then other kids had made some cookies and things like that. So it was just a really fun event. So just wanted to showcase that and say thank you to that staff. So that's all I have this evening for the update.
Thank you. Does anybody have any? Thank you, Dr. Press. Ms. Seacrest, approval of claims for payment.
Yes, good evening, board. You all have been provided with the claim certification where the operating fund is $335,402.77. The food service fund, $8,380.25 for total expenditures of $343,783.02. Along with that, you've been provided with the list of claims as well as the check register. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
I have a motion to approve the claims for
I'll
payment.
make a motion to approve the claims for payment as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. Sullivan Smoot, second by Dr. Painter to approve the claims for payment as presented.
Mr. Payne.
Yes.
Dr. Payne. Yes.
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 Thank you.
Ms. Seacrest, purchase orders over 10,000.
Yes, again, board, we have several purchase orders over 10,000 this evening for your approval. However, the first 3 are for FY22. The rest of the list are FY23, July 1 purchase orders that we would like to have your approval for so that we can hopefully have those in the first check run of July as we start the new fiscal year. If you have any questions about any of those, I'll do my best to answer them. Some of them are just our basic utility services, insurances, those sort of things that we pay for. on the
How does
regular.
that electric service work? It's is a large number, 728. What is
Oh, so that's the division.
vision wide?
And so what we would do is with your approval with that, we would do a large PO. It would be encumbered in the system and we continue to pay against that one PO for the whole entire
For the
year.
whole, so you pay monthly for.
Right, against it for the whole entire year. If for some reason the electric was to be higher than that, we would come back with another
Okay.
purchase order for your all's approval if it was over the 10,000. to continue the payment of the electric division-wide.
Why is the dual enrollment, why are they different, those amounts?
Just depends on the number of students
I was gonna say, I
that
think it's the number of
participate.
seats, yeah.
Since we pay per kid, per seat, per class.
Okay.
I know it's a lot, so definitely, if you have any other questions. We're just trying to get a jump start so that they are ready to go, since our meeting falls a little bit later than. Make a motion that we approve the purchase orders over 10,000.
I'll second.
Motion by Dr. Painter and a second by Mrs. Sullivan Smoot to approve the purchase orders over 10,000.
So I have a question. We've never seen one like this before,
Right.
right? So what's
Yes,
the
sir.
methodology?
That this provides the finance department the ability to have these bills ready to go for payment. So as you can see, up closer to the bottom, like the CenturyLink phone service is the first of the month billing. We're going to receive bills on the first of the month that need to be in that check run, ready to go. If we didn't bring them to you until our meeting is what, the 9th, the 14th, oh, even later, then we would be down at the end of the month getting those bills paid. So the idea was to have these in the system, ready to go for your all's approval now, and then they would be in the check run. You would see them on the claims for payment in the July 14th.
But not all of those
Get
items
paid
are
at one
like that.
time.
Okay.
Right. So like that large PO at the bottom, it will continually just be paid against each month. So,
Versus like one of your power school is a yearly fee, so we probably pay that in one lump.
right.
So
There are some that will be paid. Yes, dual enrollment will be paid, one month fee there.
And you'll present the ones for each month that are being from this list. You'll
It'll be on the
update us.
check
No,
register.
it'll be on the
The
check
check
register.
Right, okay.
Yes, ma'am,
right,
it'll be on
okay.
the check register and the claim certification, so you
Gotcha.
will see them again.
Your one-time ones that are getting paid are mostly going to be getting paid at the beginning of July, at the start of your
Yes, ma'am.
new year.
Yes, ma'am.
So they're going to be,
and those are already budgeted out. and
Right, that
We
was-
anticipate those costs.
Right. And then again, the electric bill will sit encumbered in the system so that it's
Pay
accounted
against.
for. And then we'll pay against it as we move along. Trying to be more efficient, Mr. Freeman. If that better answers your question.
Yes.
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 yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Mr. Hopkins, Title I Consolidated Application.
Good evening, Board. I come before you tonight asking for approval for the Page County Public Schools Consolidated Federal Programs application. Additional questions?
Well, how did it change since last time?
Title I,
Last time you said that you hadn't decided some things. So I read over it and I don't see anything any different.
I removed the private school that you had asked about from Title I, Part A. Title IV, I've gathered additional information. I've worked with Ms. Gordon on bringing in a presenter for our Safe and Healthy. I'm still working on that, so I'm writing that into the application as I get that information. And then
Title II.
Title II, so I did follow up with your question regarding property license and endorse. I spoke to Dr. Randall Johnson at the VDOE. He said as long as that teacher is specifically licensed and endorsed, that we can use that money for class size reduction. And then the additional money out of Title II will be going to those math stipends at the middle school and high school levels.
Well, you and I got two different answers.
I saw him at the Equitability Conference. Spoke to him face to face.
I always get their answers in email. So you can prove it.
Other questions?
Can I have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the Title I consolidated application as presented.
A second.
Motion by Mrs. Sullivan Smith, a second by Mr. Painter to approve the Title I consolidated application as presented.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you. Dr. Johnson, employee health benefits?
Yes, ma'am. At the last meeting, we presented the Pierce Group update, which is the group that provides us with our local choice anthem. And at that time, we worked through where we stood for our 22-23 renewal, and that is due this week, actually. And so we would ask for your approval tonight so we could move forward with our health and benefits coverage for our employees for the school year.
I make a motion that we approve the employee health benefits as presented.
Second.
Motion by Dr. Painter, a second by Mr. Painter to approve the employee health benefits as presented.
Yes.
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 Thank
Dr.
you.
Johnson, panel of physicians?
Yep. Next, as well, last time we looked at the panel of physicians, and this is exactly the same as the existing 21-22 panel, and so we would ask for your approval for this for the upcoming school year.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the panel of physicians as presented by Mr. Johnson, Dr. Johnson.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Painter and a second by Dr. Painter to approve the panel of physicians as presented.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
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 Yes. Dr. Johnson again?
One more time.
Vacor?
You might recall 2 meetings ago, we went through our VACOR proposal with you all, and that's basically our coverage, risk management, liability coverages. At that time, I told you we were going to be meeting with Lee Brannon on June the 6th, and that gentleman came here to Page, and he met with Ms. Sechrist, Ms. Seeley, and I. And I got to say, it was a very, very beneficial meeting for the 3 of us. We walked through all of these categories with him. We looked at line by line what we get, what we're spending. Very, very helpful. That gentleman is a retired superintendent, and so he has a good understanding of from our side, what we're looking at. So at the bottom there, some highlights of the meeting. I guess the biggest highlight is the second piece there, that we did receive a 10% credit on this coming year's bill. And that was because of the pandemic, and obviously usage went down in all aspects when schools were locked down and closed. And so VACOR recognized that and issued a credit back out. As with any insurance, there are ebbs and flows. Workers' comp coverage did go up slightly, and that's tied to the percentages against the amount of salaries our employees make. So when we give our employees a raise, then you can anticipate some of that going up. One of the most fascinating recommendations that they made was that third bullet about cyber coverage, and I got with Mr. Samples on this. We were sitting at $1 million coverage on our cyber, and he really couldn't say enough to us about the risk that all businesses and school divisions as well are under in regard to cyber attack. And when I think of cyber attack, I kind of think about my email. But he was talking about, for instance, the amount of electronic transactions we make from our business department. Hackers getting into those systems. So we were able to double our cyber coverage. He said that there were almost 20 school divisions right now in Virginia that are dealing with VACOR because they've suffered a cyber attack. So this is real. It's present in Virginia. And his recommendation, when you think about a lot of the technology that we've added in the last 16, 18 months. So we propose that we double it to $2 million. That would cost us $1,500 more than the original proposal, but it still puts our total cost down by $5,500. So it's a good opportunity to kind of boost that area. And he took us through some very specific steps should we suffer a cyber attack. And I won't say too much in a public meeting, but he took us through some very specific steps on how VACOR handles it and what their approach is if somebody tries to hold a ransom over us in a cyber manner. So it was very interesting. Again, this is the second time we brought this to you all as well, and we would ask for an action item so that we can get that submitted as well.
Make a motion that we approve the VACOR renewal.
Second?
A motion by Dr. Painter and a second by Mrs. Sullivan Smoot to approve the VACOR renewal.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you. Dr. Fox, approval of the updated school board meeting calendar.
Yeah, so at the last meeting, we discussed transitioning to a work session for our first monthly meeting and keeping our second monthly meeting as a regular board meeting. So what this calendar shows for you is an update beginning in September, with our first meeting in September being a work session, and then following for the remainder of the year. I would like to make one additional change. That would be our September 8th meeting would be changed to Tuesday, September the 6th. So what we'll do is update this live for you.
And the September 22nd should actually be the 25th,
Okay,
because that's a Monday.
the 20, okay. We'll make those adjustments for you. What we ask tonight is for you all to approve the changes to the meeting schedule. We'll make them and post it.
September,
Oh, I was in the
September
wrong month.
22nd.
is a
I'm in
Thursday.
the wrong month. I'm in the wrong month.
8th and the 22nd.
Yeah, so September will be the 8th and the 20, or no, excuse me, September will be the 6th and the 22nd. And we do want to confirm with you that the work sessions will begin at 5 PM and our regular board meetings will start at 6:30 as we've always done.
And I had someone call me with a concern / question, was about with the work sessions. Why can't we still have public comment?
You typically don't in a work session because you're not voting on things on the agenda.
Well, that's why I tried to explain to them, but they said, but if they had to wait till they saw the next agenda to come out, was it too late to voice their opinion? That's just what I was called about, because they said typically they won't find out what the next topic is. Then let's say for, I don't know, the October 13th one, they won't see what the agenda is for the 27th until they're waiting basically a month before they know what's even going on. I told them I'd bring it up.
I mean, we can go back and talk with the SBA about the procedures for a work session and bring that back to you next time. And then if you all want to add a public, if we can, if it's allowable, we can discuss that. And if you all want to add a public comment section to the agenda for the work session.
Because it typically, they said it typically wasn't because
You weren't.
we aren't
voting.
voting on any.
Yeah.
And then our closed session is still going to be before our regular meeting at 5:30.
Yeah. And what we decided for the work session is we would only call a closed session if we had to. For example, if there was something with personnel that we might need to approve in advance. But other than that, we wouldn't have a closed session with the work session. So we're just asking for your approval tonight of the changes.
Make a motion that we approve our updated school board meeting calendar as presented with the change of the first September date.
Second.
A motion by Dr. Painter and a second by Mr. Painter to approve the updated school board meeting calendar with the one change in September.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Dr. Fox, the FY23 budget.
Yes, thank you. So we finally have an approved budget from the governor and the General Assembly. So what we're going to do tonight is to present to you information on our final budget adoption so that come July 1, all of those purchase orders over $10,000, we can actually act on them. So tonight, I'm just going to walk you through the changes that have come based on the state budget and where we are, and then we'll ask you for approval tonight of our FY23 budget. So as we said, the General Assembly, they did pass their budget on June 2nd. The governor signed the budget into action on the 21st, and there have just been a few minor changes for us as a division from the December 2021 proposed budget. With respect to our local governing and appropriating board, the Board of Supervisors did approve operating funds in Fund 1 in the amount of $11,665,692 on May 16th. And capital improvement funds are to be determined from them. We have a little bit of work to do with them on that, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. So in terms of our revenue, this is Fund 1, so this is our operating budget, probably the biggest piece of our budget. And what we've shown you here is in that first column, you're seeing what was proposed on 5/17 that you guys initially approved so we could move forward. That's based on the governor's 2021 proposed budget. And then what you see in the second column is where we are now with the final budget. And you'll see an increase there. The way the budget ended up being is an increase for us in the general fund of just over $27,000. So no changes to the federal, the other funding, or the local funding. So our operating Fund 1 is at $42,955,962. Same type of chart for you in terms of Fund 2, which is our capital improvement. We are very, very excited to say that the state approved money in the school construction area. We were hoping that they would. We didn't get the $2.1 million that was originally proposed in the governor's budget in 2021. But we did get $1.8 million. So just a decrease there of just under $300,000. Again, no change to the federal. And so that puts us at $2.4 million in our CIP budget. So that will give us the ability to do some things, which is exciting and nice. In terms of Fund 3, which is your nutritional services, there's no changes there from what was proposed to what was approved in the state budget. So in terms of all of those by source, this just shows you putting all of those together in terms of your operating Fund 1, your CIP Fund 2, and Fund 5. That gives us a total budget moving forward of $47,556,652. And how that looks compared to where we were and where we've been, we are just under $300,000, and that's just because of those two changes, the increase in the Fund 1 for the general fund of about $27,000, the decrease of $300,000, that puts us at the negative $275,000. But again, our operating fund, we got a little tiny bump there from the state, so that's a good thing. We'll talk about CIP again in just a second. So $47,556,652 is our budget moving forward. In terms of our priorities and what we can do with that money and where we can go, we proposed the 7% salary increase and the step. That is fully funded with this budget. Your classified scale adjustments that we did for those staff are fully funded in this budget. What is not funded right now are any of those additional positions that we talked about. So our alt ed teacher, our electricity teacher, the behavior support positions, the data systems, the additional classroom teachers, those are currently not funded in this budget. There just isn't room for it based on where the money all landed. The $5,000 for the facilities upgrades, that's in there, that's negligible. $5,000 is easy to find. So all in all, we proposed $3.2 million worth of projected costs and budget priorities. And right now, at this point in time, we're able to fund $2.6 million of that request. And in terms of those positions, these are those 8 positions that we talked about. The top 3, if you recall, we prioritized these a couple meetings ago. The top 3 are the alt ed teacher, the electricity teacher, and the behavior specialist position. Right now, the recommendation that I'm going to make moving forward is one of 2 actions. We can either cover those through ESSER 3 funds. We would have to just resubmit an amendment to our grant, or we approach and go back to the Board of Supervisors and ask them to provide us with additional funding for those 3 positions. And so it's likely that we're going to do both of those and see if we can get some additional funding to cover those positions. If we do, it might mean that we could then maybe move to the next 2 or 3 positions and find some additional funding for those positions. We need the alt ed teacher. We desperately want to expand the programs at the Tech Ed Center. And we need the support of a behavior specialist in the division. So those three positions alone would be $217,000. So again, we're going to consider looking at ESSER 3 or Board of Supervisors funding for that.
ESSER 3 funds will eventually.
Yeah, they'll eventually dry up in 2 years. So at some point, if we put those in, we've got to find local funding for them. What it does is it buys us 2 years to be able to find the money to fund those positions. So since we met last, there've been some additional things that have kind of popped up that were unexpected in terms of the budget that we have to determine how we move forward with those. One is we've talked about it earlier this evening, the addition of those 2 school resource officers for this coming school year. So we again are working with the county and the towns to submit grants. Again, there may be some additional money in the state budget, but it appears that that money has been funneled through the grant process only. But again, we'll confirm that for you in the next couple of weeks. Based on the numbers of students that we have on a wait list for Shenandoah and Stanley Elementary Schools, we are probably going to need an additional pre-K teacher at Shenandoah to accommodate those wait lists. That would require us to hire a teacher and an aide based on the state. The way that's outlined, we have to have both of those positions. So we could look at reallocating some current funds to support that, or we would have to, again, potentially go back to the Board of Supervisors and ask for additional funding, because right now that money is not in our budget for that position.
How many slots did you all get from the state?
We get, is it 100 between the 4 schools? Thank you. So this would be adding another classroom to Shenandoah to accommodate. I believe there's 30 kids right now on the list, and we have room for 18 in the classroom, so we would be able to accommodate all 30. The lights on the softball field at both of the high schools, we need to add lights there, and that's going to be a considerable expense. That could be a CIP item that's funded through the school construction. Or we could, again, go back to the Board of Supervisors and ask them to fund our CIP. We need to do a little bit of work now that we have our new playgrounds and all that new equipment. We've got to do some work to make those a little bit more accessible for students with disabilities. So there'll be some updates there. That likely may be able to be funded through ESSER 2. We do have a little bit of money left there because our playgrounds came in under budget. So we're looking, we've got a quote that we're going to assess. The quote came in on the very high end, but we knew that to start with, but we'll take a look at that and get to a more reasonable number with that. And then the state bonus that was proposed in the new governor's budget is there, and we have to figure out how to manage that and what we do with that moving forward. So we're investigating that, looking into that. We'll bring you more information about that in the next couple of weeks, but that was an unexpected expense that came with the approval of the budget late in June. And then capital improvements. So we will provide for you all at the board retreat an update on the FY22. Essentially, the majority of that money has been spent on paving, furniture, and some other smaller projects across the division. We are looking now to FY23 and beyond, and we're very fortunate again to have gotten $1.8 million in school construction funds from the state budget. Local funds, again, are to be determined from the Board of Supervisors. But this is just a list of some of the projects that are either were on the previous plan or based on our assessments that we've been doing all year, are things that we need to move forward with, that we have to do many of these things. So I'm not going to read these to you, but this is a list of items that, again, we've talked about all year, or different things have come up. Or recurring things, like we know we always want to have buses on there. We know we want to have vehicle replacements on there. We know we have to replace technology. So what we're doing now, if you could go to the next slide for me, is looking at all of those things and prioritizing them. What are immediate needs? When Dr. Johnson does his walkthroughs of the buildings, there's going to be some safety and some efficiency things that come up that are going to be immediate needs. So we're going to need to prioritize all of those and look at what funding do we have through school construction, or perhaps from the Board of Supervisors. How do we manage that? What funding do we have in our regular operations budget to cover some of those costs? We are working to secure up-to-date and accurate quotes. Some of the quotes that we have may have been from 2 years ago and they're just outdated. Others are new things like the lights at the softball fields. We never had quotes for those, so we're securing quotes for those. And then we will prepare a draft for you all to bring back, not only for this coming year, but out through 2033. I can't even say that. If it's say 10 years from now. 2033. We'll get you to review that. We'll get your approval, and then we'll take that to the Board of Supervisors and work with them to move that forward for CIP. So that'll be coming over the course of the next month or so. So what we're asking tonight is for your approval of the budget moving forward for FY23 in the amount of $47,556,652. Any questions that I can answer for you?
There were definitely some open items on it.
Yeah, and the CIP, oh yeah, there's a ton of things on there. If we had, probably $50 million, I don't know that it would touch it. So we're going to have to prioritize. And I think the safety things come first. We know there's some doors that we need to fix. We just don't know how much right now a door costs to fix. So we'll have to evaluate that. So we're working on it.
Well, I know you've been doing a much better job of keeping communication with our Board of Supervisors than our last superintendent. So none of this should be a surprise to them, right? Because I'm sure you've been keeping them up to date.
Yeah, we've sent some emails to share with them what our additional funding was from the state and with regard to Fund 1. We've talked about things, the additional costs like the SROs, the bonus. They're aware of the lights on the softball fields, things like that. I shared with them the process for CIP and where we are. They're aware that we're going to give them an update on this year and looking forward. They're aware of how much money we received for the CIP as well.
Have we had any response?
No, not yet.
Did all of them? Did we email all of them?
No, we reached out to Mr. Weekly and Ms. Moeller. Ms. Gordon was copied on those emails. What I will do once we approve this, I'll reach out to all of the Board of Supervisors members and share this information tonight, and I'll include the previous information as well, just so that they know where we are. I don't want any surprises for them. What we've laid out in terms of CIP and our additional costs with the school resource officers, our pre-K, those are all things that we've put on the table.
Yeah, because when we had dinner with several of them and met with them and walked through Stanley Elementary that night, it seemed like they were all on board and saw that there were some renovations we made and supported our technical center. So shouldn't be any surprise if that they don't go along with us.
I'd like to make a motion that we
Adopt the year 23 budget as presented with an operating budget of $42,955,962, a capital improvement budget of $2,433,883, and a food service budget of $2,166,807, for a total budgeted amount of $47,556,652.
second.
Oh, boy. We have a motion by Dr. Painter and a second by Mrs. Sullivan Booth.
We tag teamed.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And if I may, Ms. Gordon, I just want to thank you all because I know it's been a bumpy ride to get here. There've been so many different things to consider. I don't think we're done yet. There's still some other things that we have to sort out and settle. So it's likely we'll come back with an amendment or two. But I just want to thank you all for listening, for asking questions, for responding when we need you to respond, and for being on board with us in terms of making the compensation piece a priority. I know that our teachers and our staff appreciate that. So on behalf of them, I'll say thank you to you all, because that's making a difference. We got an email from somebody who said it's changing their life and what they can do. So you guys need to know that impact is there. And I know it's hard to say we don't get these positions. We'll figure it out. Somebody said Page County always makes magic with what they've got, the little bit that they get. I'd like for us to not always have to make so much magic, but we will figure out a way to get the majority of those positions in somehow, some way. But thank you all for your work in this process. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Board member discussion?
Yeah, so I appreciate Dr. Johnson, all the stuff you presented on the things today. Very good. Appreciate everybody working together on things. And you, Dr. Fox, I would make a request of you to make sure that moving forward, consider copying all the supervisors on emails. Somebody could be on vacation, they get the board thing, and not share it, you know. And copying us could help too, in case we get the question, right? What's this about? That's just something I would request that you consider.
Sure.
And I appreciate the summer program that I saw there. That was pretty awesome. If I could know more about, maybe you sent me an email and I'd read it about it. I'd like to attend some of them too, or maybe I was,
Yeah, she emails.
she did.
Yes.
I didn't read it. So, yeah.
I'll keep you updated.
Keep me updated. But that was really neat. And I'm
Yeah.
glad you guys went and supported it. So thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you for the information. I think everything, we receive a lot of information. I think it's all very helpful, so I appreciate that.
Great stuff.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Dr. Painter and a second by Mr. Painter to adjourn.
Mr. Baker.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. We're there.